This is a Glendale Library Arts and Culture program, created for teens, edited and hosted by the Teen Library staff. Check out community service opportunities and teen events down in the description box.
Hi everyone, it's Melissa.
And Desiree.
Welcome to our guest episode of Teen Gen Talks.
Today's guest just graduated from the Fashion Institute of Technology in May with an AAS in International Fashion Design. Growing up, she always wanted to be a fashion designer, and she learned how to sew when she was a freshman in high school. She recently launched her brand in June 2020, shortly after graduating. Her end goal has always been to have her own brand. The purpose of her brand is to create timeless, classic pieces for your wardrobe. Her clothing is for anyone and everyone to feel beautiful and confident in their own skin.
Grab a snack and drink, and let's welcome Natalia, Trevino, Amaro to Teen Gen Talks.
Yay!
Thank you, Natalia, for taking the time out of your day to talk with us. We have a lot to discuss.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So to start off the interview, you recently graduated from the Fashion Institute of Technology. How was your experience there?
It was incredible. I did a 2-year program where I studied abroad in Italy for the first year, and then I did my second year in New York, which unfortunately got cut short, but it was still really, really good regardless. I really enjoyed my time there.
How was your experience living in New York?
It was super fun. I wish I would have had the entire year there, but I definitely enjoyed the time that I did have there. It's super fun to live in a big city and have a bunch of things to do all the time. I'm from Indiana, so there's really never anything fun here. So being in New York was super fun in that sense of always having something to look forward to and to do and to explore.
So New York is this huge fashion capital, and you study abroad in Europe. What major differences did you see in the fashion industry between the two places?
I think people approach fashion differently in the two places, at least from a consumer standpoint. I feel like in Europe, people value quality over quantity a lot, whereas in the States, it's kind of more of a quantity over quality. Although I hope that's changing, because I hope that fast fashion is not going to be much of a thing anymore. But I feel like generally Europeans are more into the minimal closet kind of capsule closet type of style, and I feel like Americans not so much. But as far as luxury type of stuff goes, I think it kind of is all the same across the board. It's super fun.
In your bio, you mentioned about how you have always loved fashion design since you were little. How did you know that was your passion?
I have always loved fashion, but I didn't really exactly know I wanted to do fashion design until, or at least not seriously, until high school. I've always been the kid that dressed up all the time and whatnot. I was super extra dressing up for school every day. But in my high school, they offered a sewing class. So I took that my freshman year, and that's when I started actually seriously sewing and realizing this is fun. I can actually do this. I feel like fashion design always interested me, but I never thought of it as a legit career. It was always that dream job, everybody wants to be a singer or whatever. It's that's the dream job. But that's not what you're actually going to pursue. But then I realized then that I actually could pursue it. I looked into it a lot more and realized it's a very legit career and there's a lot of opportunities there. So I went ahead with it at that point and then just kept sewing since then.
What was one important skill that you learned at FIT?
I think FIT taught me a lot about time management. I feel like I've generally always been pretty good with time management, but when it comes to projects and stuff, you don't really get to experience that as much in normal school, because it's usually just tests, exams and whatnot. But when it comes to actual projects and just making stuff on a timed basis, it's definitely taught me a lot about that. I feel like I'm very efficient with my sewing now.
Do you need to have advanced knowledge about sewing and pattern making?
Yes and no. I feel like I personally had a lot of knowledge on sewing, but not necessarily pattern making. I used a lot of commercial patterns in high school, and I feel like that's what most people do. You can use them and kind of go off of them to create your own patterns, but I feel like most people don't come in with that knowledge because it's kind of a difficult thing to figure out on your own. But sewing part, I feel like everybody does have a basic understanding of, at least.
Do you remember the first piece of clothing that you ever made in high school?
Yes. Well, I feel like the first thing was pajama pants, but everybody had to do that. So that wasn't a exciting thing. But I made this cute little princess line dress that my teacher at the time was like, that is too hard. You can't do that. You're a first year student. And I'm like, watch me. And then I did it. And I still have it. It still fits me. And I actually honestly really love that one still, which is so funny. But yeah, it was definitely just like a cute little princess lined, like simple little dress.
What is one tip for someone that wants to be a fashion designer?
One tip would be to just kind of go for it and just create. I think I get a lot of DMs from people that want to be fashion designers. They always ask me like, what should I do? Like, how can I improve? I'm like, there's really not much you can do except to just practice and to create and keep going. And eventually, you know, you'll find your style and how you want to do things and whatnot. So yeah, I feel like just constantly create. That's the only way to really get better and really find yourself through that.
And how about for someone who's looking to go into fashion design school, what should they do before applying?
Before applying, you should definitely start building a portfolio. I always recommend people to sew first before like the drawing part. I feel like a lot of people get really caught up with the drawing part of it, but honestly, I didn't know how to draw beforehand, and my drawings in my portfolio were awful, like absolutely awful. But it still got me in because my sewing skills are really strong. So I feel like as long as at least one or the other is really strong, I feel like it's better to do one really good thing instead of like two mediocre. So I always tell people that like if you're stronger in like drawing, go into drawing the most, and then if you're stronger in sewing, do that, but don't like spread yourself too thin on it.
What was your favorite class at FIT?
My favorite class was probably draping. It's like the class where you know, make stuff like directly on the mannequin. I always found that super fun because it's just, I don't know, pattern making is really fun but it's all on like paper, so it's not as like fun to, I don't know, look at or visualize. I feel like draping's really, I don't know, you have a lot of fun with it. I like to see things like come to life. I'm very hands-on with my learning, so I feel like draping was just like such a fun class for me.
Do you think you have to go to school to be a fashion designer?
I do not think you have to, but I do think it obviously helps. I feel like it depends on kind of your own personality type as well. I think it's like everything I've learned, you can definitely learn on your own, but it's very difficult to learn on your own. So I feel like at some point you do need some sort of guidance. If not, it's just going to take you a lot longer to get there. And obviously, if you want to work with like certain brands or whatever, if you want to be like a creative director of like a brand that already exists, then going to fashion school gives you those connections. So I think that's also something to think about, because I definitely like know a lot of people in the industry now because I went to school, which I wouldn't have otherwise. But it's definitely not a necessity like it is for like engineering or like nursing or something like that, you know?
Right.
You mentioned making connections and all of that stuff. What is one tip on like networking that you would give somebody in the fashion and that's trying to, you know, be in the fashion industry?
I think just reach out to people, even if it's just people that are in fashion school. Like a lot of people like reach out to me because they've watched like my YouTube videos on FIT or whatever. But even that is like I'm a connection to them at that point. So even if you're connecting with students, I think that's also something to think about because they're the future of the fashion industry. So I feel like that's an easier reach than going to like straight to brands. But obviously, like I think it's also really important to actually reach out to brands too. Like I interned, so like that was a way for me to network. But also if you're in school, then like your professors are a good way to network and just like creating good relationships with people within the industry, whatever part of the industry it is, but they'll know people and then eventually, you know, you have a whole chain of people behind that.
What would you change about the fashion industry?
So many things. I wish the fashion industry cared more about sustainability. Obviously, I think we're seeing that a lot more nowadays, but I think there's still a lot of improvement that needs to be made, even with just like not just fast fashion brands, but like luxury brands as well, or even just like fashion weeks and like the excess of like clothing that is being made and waste and whatnot. But also obviously like about their workers, people aren't getting paid very well. There's a lot of injustice in that sense of things. So I think there's definitely a lot of change that needs to happen, but I do think that there is a lot of change being made, which is really good. I feel like the fashion industry is a lot more inclusive nowadays and a little more diverse than it used to be. So I feel like it's slowly getting there. It's going to take time for it to fully develop, but I think there's definitely a lot that can, you know, still be changed.
We launched your brand in June of this year. What was the inspiration behind your brand?
So I've always wanted to launch my brand. I just didn't think it would be this year, kind of very unexpected. I was not expecting to be back home, but I had nothing else to do. So I was like, oh, might as well. So I was very inspired by a lot of, honestly, TikTok brands. Like I started getting on TikTok during quarantine and it was bad at first, but then I was like, oh wait, there's actually like a really cool community here. So like I saw a lot of people that were, making stuff and like selling it. And I was like, I could literally do that. Why am I not doing this? And then I just researched a lot about just sustainability and how I want to actually make things. Because I knew if I wanted a brand, I wanted to do it the right way or what I hope to be the right way. So yeah, I just kind of did a lot of research, got very inspired by other creators, just seeing how people were taking like quarantine to kind of make their dreams come true or like do things they've never been able to do. So I definitely just got inspired by that and it's worked out thus far. So
what is something that you have learned through the process of creating your own brand?
I've learned a lot about myself and how I manage things, which I think has been kind of fun. I've always kind of been hesitant on starting a brand. Like I've always wanted to, but I've always been like, oh, I'm gonna have to wait till I'm like so much more experienced. I'm gonna have to wait till like I'm 27. I don't know, just have to have like specific things. But I feel like I've learned that I'm capable of a lot more than I thought I was at first. And I've also just like learned a lot about like the fashion industry and like there's such a big community of people that want to be sustainable and like want to support slow fashion, which is really cool. So like I found a lot through that. But yeah, I've also, learned a lot about finances in this time and budgeting things and all of that kind of stuff. A lot of business stuff I've also learned because I never really took business classes or did anything like that. So I've learned a lot. I would say it's been really fun.
Where do you find inspiration for when you're designing clothes?
Honestly, I wish I had some cool story to tell with everything, but I'm the kind of person that I'm just like laying in bed at night about to fall asleep, and then this idea randomly comes into my head. I'm like, ooh, that's it. And then I'll like quickly sketch it out in a notebook next to my bed and then wake up the next morning and be like, oh yeah, like we're gonna do that. Really not like a set way that ideas come into my head. I kind of just randomly think about things sometimes, or I don't know, get inspired by, I don't know, things that I see maybe like on Pinterest or Instagram or whatever. And I'm like, oh, like that's a cool idea. But yeah, not really a solid inspiration there.
What are some of your go-to places to buy your fabric?
I have quite a few. I feel like I have two that I definitely go to the most. They're all online because I don't really have very many fabric stores around me. I only have Joann's, which is really unfortunate. um, but I use Nature's Fabric and Blackbird Fabrics a lot. Those two are my favorite. They have a lot of natural organic fabrics, but then I also do go to Fab Scrap sometimes and just see what they have because they have like dead stock fabric. So it's kind of random what they have at times. So I go in from time to time just to see if they have anything I want or like. So I definitely use them sometimes too. And yeah, I look at a lot of like vintage fabrics too and thrifted fabrics. So like a Thrifty Notions and also a really good website as well. And Revival Fabrics is also one. So yeah, I have like a long list of ones that I like to go through, but those are definitely the top ones I'd say.
I know sustainability and ethics are really important to like me and it's important to you. Why are you so passionate about it?
I became very passionate about it very recently, or I feel like it's very recently. I've been like at it for like a year and a half-ish, maybe. I think when I went to Italy, I saw a lot of like behind the scenes on like manufacturing and stuff. I just like saw the amount of waste that's created, and I started kind of just being more aware of it. And the ethics part, I feel like it's something that everybody knows, but we don't really think about. Like, I feel like growing up, I knew that if I bought something at Forever 21, it was probably made in a sweatshop in like China or something. But I didn't like actually think about it. It was just like, oh, that's just how clothing is made. Like, what am I going to do about it? But I just started doing a lot more research in my spare time and being like, okay, like if I'm going to be part of this industry, like I don't want to be another person that's doing this wrong and like contribute to all of that. So like what can I do? And then I feel like recently there's just been so many really cool brands that have popped up that are sustainable and ethical. So I feel like that's also just really cool to see. So seeing that those brands do exist, it's like, okay, there's hope. Like, I can do this. So I feel like, yeah, definitely just going to fashion school and kind of just seeing more of how the industry works definitely sparked that. And also just a lot of my classmates were very big on like sustainability and stuff. So I just kind of learned a lot from them. They're definitely like the activist types that post all the time about those things, which is really cool because I feel like in my hometown, nobody really cared about that, mostly just because people are into fashion, so it's not like something they would talk about. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like it's just school definitely opened my eyes to it a lot more.
And how long does it take you to make a piece of clothing?
It definitely depends, but I feel like majority of the stuff that I have like up on my website, at least, I can definitely make in a day, like probably in a couple hours. I'm very fast at sewing. So I don't know if that goes for everybody, but I can definitely get like 2 to 3 pants done in a day, or like 10 tops if they're simple, obviously. But yeah, I feel like it doesn't take me too long. And also, if I'm making the same thing over and over again, it just kind of goes faster every time. So like custom orders do take me a little longer because it's like a one and done, but everything on my website, it definitely goes a little faster.
What is one tip for someone that wants to start their own business?
I think the best tip is to research. I think a lot of people go into it kind of blindly and they don't really think about what their plan is. Like, I didn't necessarily have a huge business plan and everything figured out, but I definitely did research what the best approach would be to everything, because if you're going to invest into something, obviously you want to make sure you do it correctly, or as correct as you possibly can. So I definitely did a lot of research on like how to market things, what like website platform to use, and how to promote my products and all that type of stuff. So I think research is very overlooked, but definitely very important.
Speaking about promoting, how do you promote your business?
I definitely promote through social media the most. I think TikTok has been my number one, which is kind of random. I didn't necessarily intend for that, but it kind of blew up one day and I was like, oh, I could use this too. So it was very unintentional, but it just worked out that way. But yeah, I definitely promote it on TikTok because the algorithm is really good there. I promote it on Instagram as well, my YouTube channel. I've recently started promoting it on Pinterest as well, which is something I've like started to look into because apparently it does really well if you put stuff on Pinterest. So, oh no, we're working with it. But yeah, so I just try to get it across all platforms. I've started kind of reaching out to like micro influencers and being like, hey, we'll work together. So yeah, definitely just social media, every single platform possible, probably.
What is a typical day like for you as a business owner?
A typical day, I feel like it kind of varies a little bit, but I feel like usually I wake up and have breakfast, whatnot, and first thing I always do is check my emails just to make sure like everything is good, because that's obviously I'll see if there's any orders, or if I have, I don't know, anybody to respond to, custom orders, anything like that. That's like the first thing I like to get out of the way. And then if I do have orders to make, I'll just start on those. And honestly, I'll just sew the rest of the day until I go to bed. And that's kind of it. But on days that like pre-launch weeks, I usually don't have anything to sew because I'm usually like sold out. So then like everybody's just waiting for me to put more stuff out. So those weeks are spent just like doing a bunch of social media work and planning out my feed and like promoting and doing all that type of stuff. But usually my days are just a lot of sewing.
So before we end, we have some rapid fire questions for you. First question is, what is your favorite color?
Yellow.
What is some advice that you wish you would have known when you were younger?
I would have told myself to stop caring so much what other people think and just kind of do whatever the heck I want, because I definitely used to care too much. So
Who is your fashion icon?
Fashion icon, my favorite brand is definitely Chanel, but Audrey Hepburn is like my fashion icon.
What are your go-to favorite like thrifting spots?
Ooh, I definitely thrift online the most. I love Depop, and I follow a lot of vintage Instagrams. My favorite is Small Needs.
What are some of your favorite sustainability brands?
And G.E.N is probably my top favorite. They're definitely my biggest inspiration. I think they're really cool. They're also zero waste, but they're more on like the luxury end of things. But yeah, they're definitely my number one.
If you could have 3 people, dead or alive, for dinner guests, who would it be?
I would love to have Miss Coco Chanel. Love to talk to her. Would be so cool. Definitely would love to talk to Jesus, That would be a cool conversation to have. And Taylor Swift, probably.
Your first celebrity crush.
Zac Efron.
Great choice.
Yes.
How about your recent celebrity crush?
Honestly, probably still Zac Efron.
If you could visit any place around the world, which place would it be?
I really want to go to Japan.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks so cool, and
Right?
yeah. What does success for you mean right now?
I think success for me, one, means financial stability, so I don't have to worry about that, but also just like contentness in my life and what I'm doing.
What is a book that you're currently reading, or a book that you would recommend?
I'm currently reading The Introvert Entrepreneur because that's very much me. So just trying to, learn things. But one that I read this summer is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which is just like a really cool self-help kind of book of just like slowing down in life.
Thank you so much, Natalia. We learned a lot about you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit down and talk with us. Can you let everyone at home know where they could connect with you and any upcoming projects?
Yes, of course. I am Natalia Trevino Amaro on pretty much every platform, definitely on Instagram and TikTok. Those are my two biggest ones. And then my YouTube channel as well is also just my name. But definitely have a lot of stuff coming up for the fall and winter, which I'm very excited about. They're definitely my favorite time of year for season or for fashion. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff with that coming up.
Yay! Thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.